During the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, Brazil has faced one of the harshest droughts in recorded history. Subsequently, prices of both food and energy have skyrocketed. The crop shortage, coupled with the fact that Brazil was one of the worst places in regards to the pandemic, have stoked the flames of double-digit rates of inflation that is seriously jeopardizing the livelihood of each and every Brazilian. All the detrimental effects of the intense drought, as well as talk about some other farming news from around the world. First, let's talk about the food costs rising, as it is directly related to the drought. Southern Brazil has been most affected by the drought, where high temperatures and negligible amounts of rain have ravaged the area that is so dependent on agriculture. December of 2021's terrible weather has led agriculture forecasters to cut their estimates for Brazil's soy output down from 144 million tons to 134 million tons. This has led Brazil's meatpacking industry to raise food prices due to the fact that the crops used to feed their livestock have also been raised dramatically. Another food sector that is feeling the pressure is the fishing industry. A place in southern Brazil, known as the Fish Lagoon, which is 140 miles south of Porto Alegre, has an estimated 15 to 20 tons of dead fish due to the high temperatures. Citizens in Argentina are also being asked to ration their water in order to alleviate some pressure on the Parana River, which is used to transport grain and other foods from Brazil. The river is at a 77-year low due to the lack of rainfall in neighboring Brazil. Overall, food inflation in Brazil is almost 8%, with meat inflation being at 8.45%. The consumer price index is up 10.06%, the highest in a year since 2015. In a 2-week period, corn prices went from 84 reals per 60 kilogram bag to 94 reals per 60 kilogram bag. This drought could not have come at a worse time, as the country was just trying to make some kind of recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic. Up next, we'll talk about how the drought affects Brazil's ability to have electricity. Brazil is not a small country with a population of 213 million people. 66% of electricity supplied to these 213 million Brazilians relies on hydropower dams. However, these crucial structures are at a record low, meaning they cannot generate as much power as they would if the water level was higher. They are less than 25% full. The president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, has already taken to television ads, urging Brazilians to conserve power and turn off a light at home. The government has also raised prices on electricity by over 7%, supposedly to cover new power plants and some energy imports. In another attempt to stay ahead of the power shortages, Brazil's government has also invested in building 4 wind farms, 3 photovoltaic generators, and 1 new biomass power station. However, it is without a doubt that most of the stress has fallen on the shoulders of the citizens of Brazil, who are already dealing with high unemployment rates and the world's second highest COVID-19 death toll. Experts have stated that if rainfall increases dramatically, only then will they see dam levels and energy outputs increase, and it will be a slow and methodical process. And because rainfall patterns have not changed at all for the better, this means that it is only going to get worse before it gets better. And now, let's talk about how it affects the lives of average Brazilian citizens. Some smaller towns have already begun rationing their resources in order to prepare for the worst. The town of Itu, in the state of Sao Paulo, residents only have access to tap water every other day of the week. Many Brazilians remember the power rationing that took place in 2001. It was a terribly confusing period in which people had to adjust to a 4-day work week and would be punished if they violated the rationing rules. The goal of those cutbacks was 20%, which some regions came close to achieving. However, in the poorer areas, the goal of 20% was not even close to being made. During this time, schools and businesses closed, transportation, commerce, and leisure were all disrupted, and regional tensions intensified. The northeastern part of Brazil is a very close-knit group of people with a strong regional sense of community. They typically feel that their representation in the cities of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro is not sufficient and are left behind during times like these. A lawyer from the region said this: "We're always the ones left behind and swept aside. We've got a government headed by a president from Sao Paulo that failed to foresee this crisis and didn't invest in the energy. But as usual, it's the northeasterner who ends up paying the highest price." Most of Brazil is mainly focused on the economic impact of the drought, and because they are still catching up economically from the pandemic, the detriments of the drought are felt so much more. Up next, we are going to cover what scientists believe is causing the drought. Scientists are debating what could be causing this massive drought affecting Brazil and other South American countries. Most agree that all fingers can be pointed at climate change as the main culprit. Anthropogenic climate change is causing the ocean water temperatures to change more often. Because the temperature is changing more often, warm water in the Atlantic and cold water in the Pacific near South America mix, and it leads to droughts in Brazil. Another terribly detrimental fact is that deforestation deforestation leads to less recycled water from the Amazonian rainforest. The water cycle from the Amazon is a key factor in the amount of rainfall to fall on Brazil. So it seems obvious that in order to curtail some of these problems, we need to combat the effects of global warming and stop the incredibly destructive process of deforestation. Until we stop the incredible greed that drives these two things, we are only going to see worse and worse weather conditions not only in Brazil, but in the rest of the world as well. Now, for some other news in the world of farming. The chemical pesticide chlorpyrifos has been used on all sorts of different crops: soybeans, broccoli, fruit trees, tree nuts, and cauliflower. Chlorpyrifos has been recently linked to neurological problems in children and will now be banned by the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA. According to a quote from the EPA Administrator Michael Regan, today EPA is taking an overdue step to protect public health. Ending the use of chlorpyrifos on food will help to ensure children, farm workers, and all people are protected from the potentially dangerous consequences of this pesticide. After the delays and denials of the prior administration, EPA will follow the science and put health and safety first. It's always nice to see agencies actually listening to scientists and putting the welfare of human beings above the profits of a corporation. Also, in farming news, the Growing Climate Solutions Act, GCSA, was reintroduced with bipartisan support. This is a huge plus for the environmentalism movement as it seeks to bring farmers and foresters together and makes it easier to participate in carbon markets, rewarding them for attempting to lower their carbon footprint. 441 million acres in America are owned by over 11 million private owners. A study in 2018 found that if these owners improved their management practices, they could reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by over 267 million metric tons. They would also be able to improve soil health, water quality, and biodiversity benefits. Creating financial incentive to push climate action makes things happen much faster for the sake of the planet. Over 1,500 companies have set goals to get to net zero carbon emissions by some point in the future. This is amazing news for all of the creatures on Earth, as we only get one planet and must cherish the one we have. Again, financial incentive may be the only way to get real change from private individuals or companies. So the more money Congress can put aside for this bill, the better. Lastly, in agriculture news, almost 1,000 minks have died in Utah farms in the last 10 days due to the coronavirus pandemic. Workers on the farms are believed to be the way these minks got the virus in the first place, as the humans would have brought the virus onto the farms and then it was spread around by the animals themselves. It is a truly shocking and rare instance of the pandemic being as devastating to an animal population as it was to the human population. The minks were being farmed for their fur at these farms in Utah. 9 different farms in 3 different counties have now had to quarantine. However, the virus has been much deadlier for the minks than it was for humans. Over 8,000 minks have died since the pandemic started, with the minks being one of the worst affected animals from the pandemic. It's sad to see the minks, who are already in captivity and having their fur harvested, to be dying from a disease they got from humans in the first place. Thanks for watching our video on the drought in Brazil and other farming news. Sorry for all the bad news, but it isn't until people are aware of the problems that they can start making a change. We hope to see you again. Have a great day.